What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Homebrew MTG. This is another Homebrew EDH episode. This deck is just named Thrasic Park as a pun with the wordplay between Thrasios, Triton Hero, and Krark the Thumbless, and a play obviously on Thrasic Park, because there's a lot of creature-based combos in this deck. It's a three-color teamer, red, green, blue, full of ramp, interaction, combos, all sorts of fun stuff, most of which is creature-based, and there's some fun spell shenanigans afoot in this deck as well. This deck is inspired by a deck called Riverboat Casino, I believe is the title. I'll have that linked down below, so thanks Ken for the inspiration to build this deck. I figured I'd make a video on it because it's a little too high power to play consistently with either of the play groups that I usually play with. So I figured I would take it apart, put the pieces that I need into other somewhat lower powered decks so that I can continue to play with the cards that I like, but not have to be archenemy from turn 1 and turn 2 on. This deck can win pretty fast. Most of the time it can threaten wins on 4 and 5 generally, given the right cards, obviously looking for Neoform or Eldritch Evolution, stuff like that. So again, without further ado, let's get into a couple of the cornerstones of this deck, and then I'll show you guys how we win, and that'll be pretty much it. Alright, so the first cornerstone we are covering in this video is ramp. We are in green, which does help quite a bit in that department. We do have access to more popular forms of ramp. We do have your standard Birds of Paradise, Nature's Lore, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, all that sorts of good stuff. I decided to include cards like Desperate Ritual and Rite of Flame, as we do have a spell slinging sub-theme with Krark and copying those spells. It is kind of how we win the game as well, or at least get closer to that. So I figured having the extra red mana if we get successful copies. So yeah, all your standard ramp stuff will be there, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, all that good stuff. I just figured I would display some of them here, just to give you guys an example of what I put in the deck. Next cornerstone for this deck is card draw. I know there's a lot of better options than what I have displayed here, but Mystic Remora, Faithless Looting, Thrill of Possibility, and Magus of the Wheel were some of the better cards that I at least had on hand currently to be able to put in this deck for that card draw experience. Obviously there's a lot of looting, drawing, and discarding. Magus of the Wheel is a pseudo Wheel of Fortune because I don't want to shell out $350 for that, and I probably never will. Yeah, Mystic Remora is probably the best card for card draw in this deck, or at least the most consistent. If you can get it out turn 1 or even sometimes turn 2, that should be enough to get you at least a couple of cards in a 4-pod, and you should be able to find enough answers and interaction from that point. The next cornerstone here is the counter magic. We are in blue, so I decided to include some of my better counter spells in this deck, like Force of Will and an Offer You Can't Refuse. Force of Will can be free with the payment of a life if you have another blue card in hand. Also decided to include, obviously, your standard counter spell, your Dispel, that kind of thing, and Delay can have some niche uses. If it does counter a spell, it just puts it in exile with 3 time counters, basically a suspend for 3 turns, and then that spell can come back, which does give you another chance to be able to interact with it, whether it's countering it directly or misdirecting it, that kind of thing, to be able to pull that off. And before we get into the various combos of the deck, the last cornerstone of this deck, the whole reason I built it, was for the cards Eldritch Evolution and Neoform, both of which have a similar effect, although the costs are a little bit different, even if the end result is pretty much the same. They're both sorceries. Eldritch Evolution does cost 1 green, whereas Neoform is green-blue, and they both require you to sacrifice a creature as an additional cost to cast them. Eldritch Evolution is search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, where X is 2+. Sacrifice creature's CMC, put it on the battlefield, but shuffle, and then it exiled itself. Neoform is slightly less powerful, but also doesn't have the downside of exiling itself. You still search your library for the CMC card, but it's only 1+ the sacrificed creature's mana cost, and you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it, as well as the same shuffle effect, but Neoform does not exile itself, it's getting resolved. It also costs 1 less mana, and that's pretty much the only difference. They're still both sorceries, so you can't do them at instant speed unless you're running like Gandalf, Friend of the Shire, or Verdalkin Orrery, or anything like that. But yeah, both of these I really just like to copy with Krark and be able to pull out a lot of my win conditions a little bit sooner than people are expecting, which is kind of what drives this deck to be a little bit higher power at least in my regular play groups. So being able to copy those creature fetching spells feels pretty good, especially with those early wins. Now, without further ado, without any more messing around, let's jump into the combos, how they all work, and how we're going to win with this thing. The first combo, the first creature-based combo at least, is Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator as well as Glinthorn Buccaneer. Malcolm reads that whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. Now, it does not say combat damage, it just says damage in general. And Glinthorn Buccaneer is a 2/4 Minotaur pirate, notably with haste. It says whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. Also has the activated ability to pay 1 in a red, discard a card, and draw a card. Activate this ability only if Glinthorn Buccaneer is attacking. Basically how this works is you have both of your pirates out, you can swing one way if somebody doesn't have any flyers, and then you can swing Glinthorn another way, or the same way, depending on how you feel like doing it. Now, if you have your 1 in a red open and you have at least 3 opponents, you will be able to pull off this combo that is pseudo-infinite, kind of, at least as big as however many cards are in your deck. Usually I can kill everybody on the spot, drawing about 40-45 cards if there's no like super fast life gain decks at the table or anything like that, because each discard hitting 3 opponents will get you 3 treasures. You can net 1 of them because the other 2 will go to the activated ability of Glinthorn. You'll be able to activate it, discard a card, draw a card, and when you do the discard thing, that first line triggers and you will deal 1 damage to everybody, and that damage gets turned into more treasures. So you're basically netting mana every time. You're also drawing and discarding every single time. So you're not actually going up cards per se, but if you do have like a Shuffle Titan, you can just keep going with this, so it could be infinite or anything like that. So that is one way the deck can win. Pretty standard combo here being Dualcaster Mage and Twin Flame. What you can do is have a creature out. You can cast Twin Flame for 1 in a red that just says choose any number of target creatures you control for each of them. Create a token that's a copy of that creature except the token has haste, and then you exile them at the next end step. Dualcaster Mage, you can flash in response to the targeting with Twin Flame. 1 red for a 2/2 human wizard that just says when it enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So you would cast Twin Flame on whatever creature, then you would flash in Dualcaster Mage holding priority to copy the Twin Flame targeting Dualcaster, which will make a copy of it, which will then make infinite 2/2 haste wizards that you can then swing out at your opponents with. What we have here is a 3-part combo that doesn't always work, but sometimes if you have enough cheap stuff in your hand and all that good stuff, you can kind of pull it off. We've got Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, and Grape Shot. Now, Grape Shot is not necessary to pull this off. I just think it's a decent backup plan if you have the mana to do so. Say you've got like a Stormkiln Artist or something like that, you should be able to pull this off no problem. Underworld Breach gives all of your non-land cards in your graveyard escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's converted mana value plus exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard. Brain Freeze just says a target player puts the top 3 cards of her library into her graveyard. It also has Storm, so for each spell you've cast before it that turn, that Storm count will go up. So it'll be 3, and then 6, and then 9, and then 12, and it will keep going up as you cast more and more spells, including itself, but not the copies. Grape Shot is a similar mechanic with the Storm thing, so it'll copy for each spell prior to it. It's just 1 in a red that says Grape Shot deals 1 damage to any target. So basically what you can do is use Underworld Breach, mill yourself for a decent amount, so you have the cards to keep escaping Brain Freeze, and then mill everybody else out. Or if you just run out of cards or anything like that, you can escape Grape Shot a whole bunch of times. Say you have like a Stormkiln Artist out like before, you'll be able to have those treasures each time you cast or copy, so all those storm counts will get you a whole bunch of treasures to keep having the mana to do this, and then you can just kind of nuke everybody out of the sky with a well-timed, well-positioned Grape Shot aimed at everybody. Now the last combo in this deck is still creature-based. It's a little bit different though than probably your standard one. We have Niv Mizzet the Firemind with Keen Sense. Keen Sense also does work with the Malcolm Glinthorn combo, just in case you were wondering. It's kind of like the Niv Mizzet Perun Curiosity type of deal, basically the same route as that. Because Niv Mizzet says, whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet the Firemind deals 1 damage to any target, And Keen Sense says whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So then you're stuck in that same type of feedback loop where you are drawing cards, dealing damage, and drawing more cards because of that damage, and it all kind of loops back on itself until you've drawn enough cards to ping everybody down and then win the game from there. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and leave a like. Consider subscribing, it does help grow the channel. I will try to put more videos out in the future as I get the ideas and the inspiration to do so. I am sorry for the lack of videos over the past couple months. It's just been a little strange trying to figure everything out. So with that, I hope you guys did enjoy. And as always, the deck list is in the description, as well as the link to the Riverboat Casino deck list, the competitive version of this deck hosted by Ken. Thank you again to him for the inspiration, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Until then, pass turn.